Welcome back to the Leading Boldly podcast. Today we have a really special episode as part of Podcastathon, the week where podcasts spotlight a charity that matters. And the charity we're backing is the Star Trust, founded by our guest, Steve Hampson. Steve is an entrepreneur and investor who's been building businesses since leaving university, working across sectors including the motor trade, manufacturing, legal services, material handling, commercial property, charity, and global investing. He founded, grew, and sold Hampson's self-drive hire, and he later became involved with the Prince's Trust, serving as co-chair for private fundraising in the East Midlands. It was through that work that Steve met Tim Maxted, and together they created Star Trust. What makes the Star Trust stand out is its model. It's a community of local entrepreneurs and business owners, including us, who raise funds by hosting brilliant must-attend events. And critically, they don't take expenses or remuneration, meaning every penny raised goes directly to charities across the East Midlands. They're consistently raising over £100,000 every year, shared between multiple worthwhile causes. Steve's driven by positivity, grounded in humble beginnings, and committed to giving back. And today we're talking about what it really takes to build something meaningful, grow a network with intention, and turn success into impact. Steve, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome you to the Leading Boldly podcast today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, Steve, tell us about young Steve. What were you like as a child? What was your schooling like? Did you like school? Tell us all about young Steve.
You know what? I could say I was a victim, which I think a lot of people like to play on the victim card, if I'm honest, because my parents split when I was 6. And at that time, actually, believe it or not, social services came and asked you whether you wanted to go with your mum or your dad. So my sister and I had to choose which parents we wanted to go with, which is, and so you can, I potentially could play on that, and I think, people, when I tell people that story, quite very often they can label the broken home scenario of life. And ironically, my grandparents were also divorced. So from the age of 6 to 18, I lived with my mother some of the time, my father, my grandfather, my grandmother. So I lived in 4 different homes. That sounds a bit daunting, does it? I don't mean naughty boy homes. I mean family homes. And I probably went to about 8 different schools. So I had a very, let's say, checkered upbringing from 6. But, I don't label myself as a victim. I don't label myself as a broken home, because everybody that I was with gave me love and support. So whether that was my father, my mother, my grandfather, and my grandmother, they all gave me the support that I needed and the love that I needed. So my upbringing was happy, very happy, other than the fact that obviously my sister and I were living, my sister lived with my mother and I lived with my father. So that was the only thing. We didn't have that kind of family union, but that makes me very much a family person, because I think, you go through those sort of scenarios in life, you say to yourself, well, I don't really want to put my children through that same scenario. I know that's a very difficult thing, but it does make you work harder at relationships and harder at family. But no, growing up, my grandmother had, I think my grandmother had 5 jobs. My mother had 3 jobs. We lived in a council house. I never traveled abroad till I was 17. We didn't have a car. My dad was a truck driver. My mum did various jobs, from cleaning to waitressing in cafes. So very, very grassroots kind of upbringing for me, really, in terms of life. And but we were happy. And it's like I say to people about the money thing is, the problem is with social media now, it exposes you to everything that everybody has. But, in my era, we never had that. So I was never envious of somebody that had a nicer car or flew on a plane or went on a foreign holiday, because I never had any experience of it, nor did anyone around me. So you were happy with what you had. And I think, it's sad in today's society that everybody wants to be somebody else or do something else or get something else, really, than be happy with what they have. But no, I had a great, my grandmother and grandfather in particular were very very educationally minded. They pushed me hard at school to do well at school. I did do well at school, whereas my dad was very much a hands-on, truck driver. And I've still got a passion for trucks because I used to go out from the age of 5 and I used to have to map read for him and show him where to go and understand landmarks, etc. But we travelled all over the UK delivering sugar for British Sugar at Newark. So, it was interesting.
I spent similar school holidays with my granddad, who was a truck driver. I used to love going in the truck with him and helping him change the tachograph over and things like that, which were old-fashioned paper ones. I don't know what they are now, but it was amazing. I love those times.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's definitely, and it's a bonding thing. I had a lot of time with my father, equally a lot of time with my mother when I was with her. So it gives you that bond time, and I think again, it's important to have that quality time. Parents and children.
And do you think having those 8 different schools kind of forced you to have to be a bit more social and getting in and making friends, or did it? How was that for you? Because some people find that really traumatic, and some people say it was really helpful because it meant that they had to be sociable and they had to make friends.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because my son's 13, and we talked to him about his sisters are leaving school, and one's leaving school this year for university, and one will be next year. And we said, do you want to stay at that school because your sisters won't be there, or do you want to go to another school? And there's lots of schools where we are. We're blessed with schools. He says, no, I don't want. All my friends are here. I don't want to leave. Mine was not a choice. Mine was dictated by the fact that, my mother lived in a different area to my father and my grandparents lived in a different area. So obviously when I went to live with them, you then would have to change school for the school that was close to them. So there wasn't any choice in that. So you are kind of then forced do you want to be that child that is, sat in the corner with no friends, Billy no mates, or do you kind of want to be out there and be friends? I think the hardest thing is, as a male as well, you want to be kind of accepted amongst, let's say, the more alpha males in school. But then also I was an academic, so you wanted to do academia. So, and as you know, quite very often you can be tarnished with that nerdy term. So I think it's always a difficult balance when you're at school to be able to run with the alpha crowd and run with the academia crowd. But I managed to balance that. So you do kind of make friends in all those different areas. But the nice thing about it is you have that ability to make friends in the different areas of society, really, different levels of society as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So you say you were really happy and content and you had no comparisons and stuff, which is a really interesting point. I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but you're so right. We didn't have those comparisons. So what lit the fire under Steve then to achieve everything that you've done?
As I say, my grandparents were very, very assertive when it came to education. I fondly remember my grandfather taking me to the library, and he would take me to the library every Saturday morning, and he would make me read. It's ironic that I read Punch because it was the only magazine with cartoons in. But he would literally make me read all the way through the library for hours on a Saturday morning. My grandmother had married a Polish war veteran. He taught me chess, so he made me very disciplined in this kind of skill of chess, and she was very pushy in terms of my educational standards. So I think you naturally have that base, that base in terms of you've done well at school. I think when you're doing well academically, you become naturally competitive. So I remember, my comprehensive school, one of my best friends was a Chinese boy called David Chan. And David and I were always, either he was top in maths or I was second, or I was top in maths or he was second. And we were always competing for that 1-2 position. And David's gone on. And again, it's interesting to see the comparison. David's become vice president of Visa for the whole of the South Asian Pacific Basin. So, he's gone on to, to very heady heights in terms of his career as well. So I think the education drives you in terms of wanting to do well, wanting to be competitive. And then I think when you come out of education, then you still have that drive. And, that followed me through. I went to college in Newark for 2 years to do business studies. And then I went to university in Nottingham to do business studies. So that drive just keeps pushing you through, really.
Yeah. And I do think competition and competitiveness can be a really, really good thing. And it can also be the thing that breaks some people. Because I know from some of the kids I know, they go, well, I can't compete, so I'm not even going to try. And I love that, it is that choice again between, do you try to compete, or do you say, oh no, that's not for me, so I'll not be in the game at all? Do you use your parents splitting up at that age as trauma, or do you use it as, well, I had all these different houses and different, it's all about perspective and how we use things. And two people in the same house can do very, very different directions.
And I think probably had I been with my mother and father all of the time, I probably wouldn't have been as academic, if I'm honest, because my dad kind of wanted me to be a truck driver. I mean, I did my HGV when I was 18. He wanted me to be a truck driver. My mother was always a manual worker. So I would have suspected that if I'd been in that family home as a family union, probably I wouldn't have done as well as academia, because I do think with children, and, this is a mantra with my own children, is that you've got to say to them they can do anything. They genuinely can. They have the ability to achieve anything in life and go for it. But I think, as you've just said, if they've got people surrounded by people that are saying, no, you can't do that, that's beyond you, you don't have the capability, you've got no chance. I think you're restraining people from a very early age, which I think is wrong. I think you should let them go and do whatever they want to do and see what greatness they can achieve in their lives. But it's interesting when you say about the burnout, because I had, another lad called David, who was in my comprehensive school. He was the only child in our school who went to Oxford or Cambridge, one of the two. So the only one in the whole school that got chose. I think he was a wizard at physics. And I remember seeing him in my early 20s doing a post round on a bike, delivering mail. And I stopped him and said, David, wow, you went to Oxford, burnt himself out totally, and just absolutely just detracted back from the whole education piece and became a postman. So you're right. I think if some people, if they can't embrace it and they can't deal with it, they will burn.
What do you think makes the difference?
Between what?
Somebody who burns out at that level with the academics and somebody who takes it on and has it as a competition and makes something of it.
It's the strength of you and the strength of the people around you. I think you have to be a very strong individual, with all those pressures. It's like being in business, as stuff's thrown at you from all angles. And, you really have to be prepared for that, and you have to be strong in that regard. But also, I think it's about the people you put around you. I've always said in terms of business isn't about me. Business is about the team you put around you, the best you can get. And I think it's very much like when you're coming through life as a young person, it's about that support group you have around you, that whether that be at school, whether that's your peers at school, whether that's your parents at home. I think all of that, is that whole makeup of whether somebody really does go down the route and able to succeed, or they fail. And sometimes they're not fail. People take failure hard, as you well know. And I think sometimes with people that have failed, you've got to try and give them the support to get back up again, to get back up in some way, definitely.
One of the best things I ever learned in my first weeks of coaching was the phrase, there's no failure, only feedback. And I was in my 40s when I learned that as a phrase. Yeah. So when you say that to your kids, they're teenagers, I get rolled eyes all the time with my two. But I'm just hoping that they hear it at a younger age and they don't hold on to that failure kind of narrative. Because if you don't learn fail, how do you ever then not fail? Because you haven't learned anything. You learn stuff from the failures all the time. Yeah. If everything goes perfectly, how do you ever know how far you can push yourself?
And as I say, it's how you deal with that. We had the instance only this morning. My son's, loves rugby. He's just been chosen for the school for rugby sevens in London, but one of his best friends hasn't. So his best friend is in tears. He hasn't been chosen for the rugby team, and you feel that's when his best friend needs that support, because he will be feeling today, I'm a failure. I've not been chosen. I'm rubbish. I'm a failure, and he's not. It's probably the fact that there's 12 other boys that are so much better than him, particularly at rugby, that they have to choose the 12 best. And it's how you convey that to the individual about, this isn't a failure of you. This is just trying to get the best result for the school, and just trying to temper that, really.
Yeah, Michael Jordan wasn't picked for the school team either, was he?
No. Yeah. Like, a lot of these sportsmen were kind of overlooked early doors and then went to stardom. And, I say to my kids, everything's achievable. Did you think Barack Obama thought he was going to be, the first black president? No. Did you think Neil Armstrong ever thought he was going to walk on the moon? No, I guarantee it at school. So aim high always. Just see what comes from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So what catalyst and story led to Star Trust, Steve? Where was it born?
First, it came out of Prince's Trust. So Prince's Trust, I got press ganged. So when I sold my business in 2007, I was sitting on a business link board at the time for Leicestershire and Lincolnshire. And a good friend of mine chaired the board, a guy called Hayden Biddle, who is or was chairman of Bateman's Brewery. And Hayden and I got on like a house on fire. And he was the representative for the Prince's Trust fundraising for Lincolnshire. So when I sold, Hayden said to the Prince's Trust, look, Steve's got nothing to do. He's just sold his business. He's idle. He needs something to do. He's going to take my role. Didn't even ask me. Next thing the Prince's Trust said, Hayden's put you forward to be the chair of fundraising for Lincolnshire. Has he? Okay. So I've always wanted to give back. I always feel we have and you've heard me say this at the ball, we all have a moral responsibility in life, and we do, to give back, particularly when we've been successful in our own lives. And I think particularly that resonates more when you've come from nothing and you've experienced some of the things that I have growing up, and you feel, you need to give people opportunity and support. So I've always wanted to give back. And obviously, particularly when you do sell a business, it's a great opportunity to then start, whether that's starting your own foundation or doing the route that I did. So Prince's Trust was first. We did 3 years, 3 remarkable years. We raised, close to £1 million in 3 years. But then I thought to myself, wow, Prince's Trust is a big charity. When I was there with Tim, we were 70, 80 million pound a year. It was a big animal. They had their own marketing department. They had their own fundraising departments. They had all of this resource around them. But you would interact being part of the charity community with lots of local charities. And then when you started to look under the hood of a local charity, they don't have a marketing department. They don't have a fundraising department. People are just scrambling to give support within the charity. And the fundraising comes secondary, but it's essential. So Tim and I just thought at the time, what we do for the Prince's Trust, we could do for the local charity community. And we were sat at the Star in Frussington, a pub near Leicester, just brainstorming, what we're going to do. So we said, right, we're going to start this new charity. We can do the same events we do as the Prince's Trust. Because over those 3 years, it's quite interesting. When you get a rapport with guests like I have with yourselves, number one, they trust you in terms of, what you're doing in terms of fundraising and due diligence, et cetera, et cetera. And actually, we realised they weren't really bothered what charity it was going to, as long as it was going to a good charity that we'd kind of looked at. So we said Star Trustees would be a perfect platform to be able to give to all, as opposed to give to one. And we were brainstorming for names. We were like, God, what do we call this? What do we call this? And we sat in the Star, and we were like, why do we call it Star Trust? And that's where it came from. So we did that with a view of being rather than helping the few, helping the many. So, yeah, there was the beginnings, and I still go to the Star.
I love that. That's a brilliant story. But our first kind of association with the Star Trust was at a networking group, and Kavita stood up and did a presentation about the Star Trust and what you do and why you do it. And I had been searching. So we support another charity, Tough to Talk, which we do a lot of work for, hands-on work. And it's a male suicide prevention charity. And Matt's on the board and all the rest of it. And I wanted something for me to support. And I kept looking around going, yeah, well, that's amazing. And that's amazing. And that's amazing. And that's amazing. I don't know which one, how do I choose from all of these brilliant local charities, which one I'm going to support? So when we heard this presentation, I was like, Matt, that checks all the boxes, because it's local and it covers lots of different things. And at some point I can get more involved in it, which I haven't as much as I would like to have yet, because we've been building this business and it is still quite new. But it's something that I know when I can, I will have a lot more input in. So that was what really kind of fired me up about the Star Trust and why I wanted to be part of it.
And it really spoke to us as well, and particularly me, because at the core of it was a group of entrepreneurs who understood business and effective business and making things profitable and work and having impact, that were going in and not just handing out cash. They were handing out, advice and strategy and making sure the money was actually going to go to some good, positive work rather than just kind of drift away in, as sometimes it can. There was a team of entrepreneurially minded people overseeing it. And that really sang to me. So, yeah, it was a complete no-brainer for us.
And I think you've hit a good point there, Matt, because I think, the big charities get a lot of exposure, because they spend a lot on marketing, and they've got marketing teams, and they've got network, and they've got reach. But, when you look at, the Prince's Trust was great because about 82% of the money they raised actually went to the young individuals that they assist in life. So that's a big hit rate for a national charity. But some charities, that hit rate's very low. You give them £1 and they're only giving p to the people that they're supposed to be helping. Like the typical Christmas card scenario, we're donating this, then you look on the back and they're giving them 1p of the Christmas card. And also you hear stories, I heard of a national charity that I know, they've just spent 150,000 on rebranding. And if I showed you the old and the new brand, you go, what they spent the money on. But also, there's no way that I would sign anything like that for the Star Trust. Whenever we buy anything, whether it's, and we buy very little, but like when we're putting an event on, we try and rob, steal, whatever we can, negotiate to try and get everything we can for free. So, the first point of call I'm saying to people is, what can you give me for free? What do you need to charge me for? And if you need to charge me, how little can you charge me? So it's, as you would do in business and as I would do in business, you are purchasing responsibly, and you are also donating monies responsibly. So it's not just carte blanche, we'll order this, we'll order that. So I do think there's a differential there, definitely, in terms of, the entrepreneurism and the commercialism of how we not only fundraise, but how we deliver as well.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's such a frustrating story when you say about the rebrand and the amount of money that costs. We've done a lot of work we've done pockets of work with the NHS and a lot of work with Tough to Talk. And it doesn't have to be like that. There's no need for those rebrands to be six figures.
No, absolutely not.
There isn't. Yeah. Absolutely not. And also salary-wise, one of the things that we're always looking at when we have an application, particularly on the financial side, is money in the bank and how much are they paying their individuals. And, because we're aimed at the smaller charity network, if you've got hundreds of thousands or millions sat in the bank, no chance we're going to give you any money, because get rid of that money first. And if you're paying your chief exec 500 grand a year, 300 grand a year, whatever, we're not for you. We're not going to support that. And we're not going to support a charity that's paying big salaries, get your money from somewhere else. So, we're trying to make that impact to the people who really do need it, need that funding, need that money, as opposed to those that don't.
So this is a special episode all about the charity. How would you like people, or how would you suggest people get involved, having heard a little bit about what you're doing?
I'm always softly, Matt. So for me, it's a case of visit the website, number one, startrust-org.co.uk. Look at what we do, see if what we do resonates with you. So I think charity has to resonate with the individual in terms of wanting to support. And then in the nature of support, that can be all different ways. We do a corporate donation incentive where people give us money per month, from kind of £25, £50 upwards. We do a sponsorship package for the year where we have corporates that sponsor us, and then in return we're asking them what they want. Is it brand awareness? Is it exposure to potential new clients? Is it exposure to their particular product or whatever? There's ways of helping in terms of the charities that we assist, because not only sometimes is it a monetary a value they need. Sometimes they need resource as well to assist them to deliver what they do. And then it's attend events. As you know, we only do, this year we're going to do 3 events. We only normally do 2/3 events a year, Motoring Day, the ball, and this year we've put in on a special million milestone event because we'll have given away £1 million this year. So it's monumental for us. So that's going to be a kind of freebie event open to all that have assisted us on our journey.
Let's talk about the ball. So we went, I love your events. And every time I see them online, I'm like, that looks amazing. So this year when the ball came up, or last year when the ball came up, we were like, right, we have to go to that.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. It was not your average charity ball. We've been to charity balls. It was not your average charity ball. So tell us about the ball, the setup of it, because it must take quite a lot of coordinating and organising to do what you do. But it is spectacular.
It's all about the team again. Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, I get invited, as I'm sure you do, to social events all the time. So you get invited to network events being a business person, and you also get invited to charity events because people know you're in the charitable world and you're going to support, which I do, you know, and I do support charities outside of the Star Trust. But a lot of them follow the same format. And as I say, the biggest problem with that is you've got sometimes a lack of entrepreneurial understanding as to how to drive revenue. That's, you know, basic concept of business. How do you drive revenue from what you have? And then it's also they just don't have the reach, you know, or the network to be able to either have the right attendees to spend the right money or the right prizes to be able to raise money from. And that's no fault of them, their own, you know, and I think that's what we can give local independent charities, that network and reach. So, you know, first of all, we always said that the ball needs to be exclusive because it needs to be a peer-to-peer environment, mainly aimed at high net worths, senior corporates and business owners, so that when you come to the ball, you're in an environment with your peers. So you can very openly talk about where you go on holiday, what you drive, where you live, what your business is doing. But then also the spin-off from that, you can talk about, I'm not happy with my accountant, who do you use? I'm not happy with my solicitor, who do you use? And I think when you're a peer-to-peer business person, again, you have that comfort in being able to have those conversations. And then also when you get to know that individual, you then trust their, them being able to give you the advice or a recommendation. So we wanted to build that community where everybody felt that they were in the same peer-to-peer community, number one. Secondly, we wanted to deliver something that was just a bit different out there. So, you know, we always do the car driving, and we're always blessed with, you know, innumerable car dealer groups locally that will put ride and drive events on for us, you know, at the kind of highest level of supercar and luxury cars. But then we've been very blessed that Kev Orkian, who owns the brand Jonglers, I've worked with Kev since the start of the Star Trust, and he delivers all of that amazing entertainment. So we'll think of an idea, like this year's Studio 54. So we say, right, there's the idea. Let's put some entertainment around it. And we've actually evolved it, interestingly, from being acts that are bunkered, so one act, then another act, to a show. And you've seen that. You saw that last year, and we did it. The first year we did was Vegas. Last year was Greatest Show. This year's Studio 54. Make it more like a supper club. So more like you're coming into an environment where you're dining, but you've got entertainment going on all through the evening, themed to the theme of the event. So that's new for us. And I think, you know, that gives it, again, a different aspect. So we're very blessed to have Kev. So he organises all that entertainment. So all those acts you saw last year, he puts all those together. So I can almost push out to him and say, Kev, deliver what you do. TR Global Events, Tony, again, our partner, putting all of the things at the event on is outstanding. So he'll do lighting, he'll do audio visual, he'll do dance floor, he'll be the organisation management on the evening to make sure the evening runs fluid. So a lot of these partners now we work with for many years, they understand what we need as a charity. So we're blessed. We're blessed to have these, you know, these great partners around us. We work with Givergy on the silent auction, you know, and again, they know us, we know them, we know what they can do. And then, you know, the event that you came to last year was a new event because since Prince's Trust days, we've been holding it at Stapleford Park. And then Sadly, the year before last, Stapleford Park went into receivership. So they closed the doors literally after our event. I mean, it was ironic. I'm not talking about on the night, they shut the doors down, but literally the week after they closed, which was sad for us because it was a great venue. And then that leaves you a dynamic, because in the East Midlands, you have lots of venues that have conference and event capability, but no rooms, or you have hotels with loads of rooms and no event and conference capability. So finding somewhere like Rutland Hall Hotel is unique, because they have, with their lodges, we can probably accommodate 150 people. We've also got local hotel partners we can work with, and the ballroom would take 500 people. So Stapleford, we were always limited to 160. Last year, we did 210. This year, we're aiming as a minimum to do 250. It does take work, but we have some great partners. And I have Emma in my team. I have my board members in the team that all pull together for that event, in terms of, assisting guests, loading up all the prize information, doing the raffle on the night, as you saw, and all unremunerated. None of our team are remunerated. And they all come to that event and the other events and work for free, and for the good of the charity. So it's a blessing to have such a great team.
Yeah, I mean, we walked in and it looked really spectacular. And I think there's not many charity ball raffles where the prize is a diamond bracelet. It was like, what is going on here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, I'm super passionate in what I do about positioning. To me, positioning is like the golden underpin of everything successful in business. And I think the ball is positioned brilliantly. I think it's absolutely sort of top of the tree. It's perfect, ideal customer personas. I think, price points, everything. I think the positioning was genius.
Yeah, I mean, we turned up at Rutland. There were last year was Ferraris, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you got the chance to drive a Ferrari if you wanted. We didn't. I think I had vertigo at the time, so I figured that driving a Ferrari wasn't a great idea.
Yeah.
But we took pictures and we sent them to Matt's daughter, who's absolutely supercar mad. And
okay, brilliant.
She wants to work in Formula One. So when you were saying about kids, like, don't tell them they can't do stuff. She's at just 16 and wanting to work in Formula One. So we're sending her all these pictures of the cars, and everybody gets properly dressed up, which is lovely. It's a properly, you don't feel like you're going to go there and be overdressed. I love that. So it was a really exciting event, and we met some amazing people at the table, and just, a few people that were just the two of them, like me and Matt were just the two of us last year. We didn't really know anybody else. And you see that kind of person stood there with their wife going, I don't really know anybody either. So we teamed up with them and had a chat, and met some really, really brilliant people and raved about it ever since, because it was such a great experience.
Well, one thing we try hard. I mean, number one is I'm very selective. I'm very mercenary about who comes. So if I didn't know you, I would be asking you, like, who are you? What do you do? What's your business? Tell me about you. It's not just, I want to sell you a ticket. I don't need to just sell a ticket. That's not what we're about. So it's very much, when we don't know the individuals or we don't know the companies, it's very much, we need to understand you before, not that it sounds a bit pompous, before we'll allow you to come, but, we have this peer-to-peer scenario. But then when you consider it's not cheap for a ball in the East Midlands, £198 a ticket, the supercar day, £695 a ticket. And we sold that event out in 48 hours. 48 people in 48 hours. But what we try to do is give perceived value for money. So, like, I've just done a deal this year with Laurent Perrier for champagne receptions, because in previous years we've done gin and we've done Beaver Fruit Farms, who have been big supporters. We've now gone back to champagne for this 2026, and Laurent Perrier are going to be our champagne partner. So we're not gone for Costco champagne. We've gone for Laurent Perrier champagne. But then, as you know, and you've experienced it, we'll work with a chef. What's the quality of the food you're going to deliver, please, on the night? And we do the food tastings. We go for the whole array of what the chef says he wants to deliver versus what we feel our guests would want to receive on the evening. And then we try and make, the raffle. So, as you know, £50 for one ticket, free tickets for 100, and everyone's like, wow, that's expensive. But look at what you get. With that, you got a £7,000.
I have to say something about that, Steve. You need to help the girls out selling the tickets. It needs to be an even number, because those poor girls having to take off 3 tickets, it caused chaos in the strips. So please give them an even number.
You say that, Jenny, but I think the raffle last year raised as close to £10,000. I mean, it's amazing. You get that take up in the room, because everybody, somebody in that room will win that diamond bracelet.
Yeah,
somebody will win it, definitely.
Yeah.
So it's always a big ticket, and you've always got that chance. It's a bit like the lottery, isn't it? You play it, there's a chance you may be that. So we try and deliver that, and then with a kind of whole night's entertainment. So even when it comes, it's interesting, on the value for money thing, because I remember Stapleford. Again, I'm always conscious of people's perceived value for money, and you're only as good as your last event, so the event needs to be great every time. But they wanted to do these exorbitant cost wines on the tables, and we don't get anything from the wine sales. That's all the vendors. Said, not a chance. There's no chance you're putting those wines out, those prices to our guests. So let's rethink, either bring those prices down or rethink the wines. We want quality wines, but we don't want people feeling like they're being ripped off by the wines. So, even down to those details we're kind of looking at, so that hopefully you do go home and you do rave about it and you do want to come back. So, that's always our intention, to give people the best night that they can have in the region.
Talking about the food, so we were blown away by the food, because there was such a bold, it was the boldest menu for 200 odd people I think you could ever go for. I think we had venison tartare, rare beef fillet, and I don't even remember the pudding, because those two were just so standout. It was absolutely amazing, but really bold choices, because there are lots of people that won't eat those kind, the rare and the tartare.
Difficult balance though, isn't it? Because you don't want to go to the event and have the usual chicken,
Absolutely. Corporate chicken, as I call it. Yeah.
Your prawn cocktail and your chicken or whatever, or soup. Yeah. So we want to try and deliver something differently. But as you just rightly said, Jenny, you don't want to put people out of their food comfort zones either. And actually, and again, one of our former patrons was Tim Storer from Pucker Pies. So the reason we do the Pucker Pie thing, and we've always done that, and Tim's an avid supporter, even post being a patron. He's a lovely man, a great family, great business for the region. And I met with Tim 2 weeks ago, and he's supporting again the Pucker Pies. But we always did the Pucker Pies because, you know what, Jenny, if you felt, or Matt, you felt that you were still hungry, or you had the munchies at midnight, you could go out there and get pine chips. And we said, for free. And we said, that gives you that whole, covers a night off then. So if the food isn't quite what you wanted it or what you would like, everybody loves a pie and chips.
Absolutely.
That's exactly what happened at our table, because we were stuffed and the pies came out, and some of our table went, we're starving, we're going for the pies. We really, really want a pie, but we can't. And then about an hour later, we're like, are the pies still there? Because I could just fit one in now.
Yeah. And I'm definitely going to, yeah.
It's about 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And we managed a pie, and we were very pleased with the pies too.
Yeah.
Tim always is so generous, gives us so many pies. It's brilliant. As I say, some of the partners we work with and we get this stuff for free. Beaver Fruit Farm, Pev Manners, these local to me. They're a great brand, and Pev's supported us again all the way through. He gives us all of our non-alcoholic drinks for free. Warner's Gin gave us all of our gin for free. We're so blessed to have these people around us that understand what we try to deliver and understand that if they don't charge us, that's extra money we can make. So it's wonderful, really is.
Even in the ladies' toilet, there was a big basket full of those little prong things that you stick on your high heels to stop you sinking in the grass. What was that company called?
Oh, that was, again, one of our board members had found that company. But
I need to look that up, and we'll put it in the show notes. But I was really annoyed because I was like, I don't wear high heels, so I'm not going to get them. And then a month later when we got married, I was like, I should have picked up a set of those for my daughter's heels. So while we were getting photos on the grass, her heels were sinking in. And I was like, just because I don't wear.
Yeah. Well, we didn't get those, did we, Matt? They weren't in the jar.
No, I was going to say, I had no idea what you're talking about there.
Yeah. But the other interesting, and again, this is about, and you'll know the value of network. I said to people, true net worth in business is your value of your network. I was in Italy on a car launch, and I met this guy, just sat across the table from me at dinner. So we just got chatting, and so what are you doing? He's got a business in Leicester called Data Image. And he said, I do all the big branding around buildings. I work for, likes of Nike, et cetera, et cetera. And I said, you won't be able to produce ball brochures, would you, for our charity? He said, yeah, I'd do that in my sleep. Yeah, no problem. I said, what else do you do? And we had this conversation. We got friends, got to become friends and family friends as well. But they have this amazing business in Leicester where they do, and so all of that imagery in the room, all of this, the Greatest Show imagery, they produced for free. They do all of that. The year before, they did massive Vegas signs. They did big dice. They did loads of stuff on the Vegas. Again, all for free. So, we work with their team, and they're doing the Studio 54 this year. But, amazing. And the byproduct of last year, which we're now going to monopolize for this year. Do you remember the cutouts of all of the circus animals, like the bear and the elephant? People came up to us and said, can we buy that? Why? We love elephants. We want it at home. We've got an event coming up, and this would be great. I think we made about £600 selling those signs from last year. Brilliant. So we're brainstorming at the moment that how can they develop for us a Studio 54, John Travolta disco dancing imagery that we could potentially sell on the night, because it's another way of generating revenue, but also you taking something away for it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. That's really good.
So I've got a question about business, just generally. What lesson have you learned that you would like to pass on to our listeners who are starting out in business that's really important for them to know?
God, there's so many lessons in business. I think, as we've intimated before, I think if you get hit, get back up again. Don't let it keep you down forever. I think if you've got an entrepreneurial spirit, I think the difficulty is these days we see ideas, particularly online ideas, from the e-commerce world or in terms of that arena, and they're very difficult. I've been exposed to some of those in terms of investment, and they're very difficult because very few succeed, sadly. It's a very overcrowded market that needs a lot of capital to get it going. But I think if you have an idea, run with it. Just run with the idea, go for it, have a go for it. But I think in business, you have to have, I meet so many people in businesses that can't read a balance sheet or can't read a P&L. And I think the key in a business is knowing your numbers. That's one key, I would definitely say. The amount of business owners that I chat to, and, I go, what's your margin? What's your EBITDA? What's your bottom line? And none of them haven't gone, oh, my accountant deals with all that. I said, well, they shouldn't be. You should be. You should know your numbers, because numbers will highlight to you everything that's going on in your business, good, bad, and indifferent. So I would always say be a numbers person. And I think you get a bit of that at university. Obviously, I did business studies, so you do get a bit of the P&L, balance sheet, etc. But also, I think then you've also got to self-learn as you go along. And then the other thing is put good people around you. I think you get this. Again, I meet a lot of business owners where they go, it's all about me. Hampson's self-driver was all about me. I made it. It was all me. It wasn't me. It was the 180 staff we had. It was a great team we had. So it's never about you. You can be the leading light, but, it's always about the stars that you have. It's almost like you're the comet, and then there's all these stars, and those stars are the ones that truly make the business. But I think surround yourself by good people in terms of support. And I'm never afraid of employing people that are better than me, because if they're better than me in their particular skill set, brilliant, absolutely, because they're going to enhance what you do and the value of what you do.
Yeah,
absolutely. We have a mantra here, which is success is a team sport.
Absolutely.
And it comes to fruition every way, every time. You can't get around it.
One of the things that I think we see a lot of, and I experienced myself, is that I went into coaching after being a stay-at-home mum, working in corporate, and I did my qualifications, spent 18 months training to be a coach, and they went, how do you get clients? Anything about business. And I was in my 40s, and I knew nothing about business at all or branding or any of this stuff. And I see a lot of people that go, well, I just want to coach. I don't want to do all of that stuff. And I've spent probably tens of thousands of pounds over the last few years learning about how to market, how to brand, how to sell, how to do all of those things, because I can't just be a coach. But it's not how it works.
And it's about the people you put around you, Jenny. I think the other thing as well you've got to remember is everybody has an agenda. And I say this, and I say this particularly to new business owners. Understand what their agenda is. And sometimes be as blunt to say, right, why are we having this meeting? What's the agenda? What do you want from me? Is it you want my money? You want to work with me? What is it you want to do? Because we need to strip that away and understand what that agenda is, and then we can build on it. Because a lot of people sadly have secret agendas. You'll get a lot of people, like you say now, how do you attract customers, Jenny? So there'll be people, I can get you customers. Yeah, brilliant. They want thousands of pounds a month to generate leads for you. And those leads aren't really true, valuable leads for you that will lead to work. So all you've done is you've spent money on them, but actually the output of that for you has been very poor. So I think it's very much about the people around you.
And I think it's important to self-learn so you know the basis of it all, and then you can pass it on to someone else so that you know that you're passing it on to a person that knows, because you've got some information. It's like you were saying about the numbers. If you just pass it off to your accountant all the time but don't know them, you're putting all the power into the accountant. So it's not that you have to do all of that stuff yourself, but there has to be an understanding of what
Absolutely.
And why.
And I think it's probably an English thing, but the other thing is we don't want to ask a question because we don't want to seem dumb. So we don't ask the question, and we are dumb. The reality of that is, so, if somebody's trying to tell me something and I don't understand it, I go, please explain that to me. I don't understand that term. I don't understand what you use in there. And because I'm not bothered about whether someone would judge you and say, you should know that. It doesn't matter. I don't know it. So until you tell me, I won't know it. And if I bumble along not knowing it, then there's a deficit really in terms of what we're doing. So I think that's truly important in terms of, understanding. If you don't understand, ask. And even then, if you don't understand, ask again. Say, break this down even more because I still don't understand it. And I think particularly when we're in this techie world, of AI, and the technological advances that we have, I think that's going to be even more so, really, because I think people that haven't had that in their education, I didn't have in my education, I'm sure you didn't either. We don't know anything about it. So you've either got to self-learn it or you've got to learn it from somebody else. When we had our vehicle rental business and we had branches throughout the East, all the way from Norfolk all the way to Yorkshire, I would always, without question, if somebody was running a branch, let's say in Kings Lynn in Norfolk, that individual, I'd say to him, this is your business. This is your branch. It's got my name above the door, but this is your business. So they had their own P&L. They had their own ability to hire and fire, their own ability to actually map out their own destiny. But you empowered them to have that as their own business. And because that's how you get true success. In your point about team, Matt, you get that team because then all of a sudden they feel empowered that it's their business, and it was. So, and I think that's the only way. I think if you try and micromanage everybody, people just won't be allowed that freedom to grow.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's the big hairy goal for the future, Steve? You just hit or about to hit 1 million.
Star Trust.
What's next?
It's interesting because you know what? I think we're always evaluating, board members and myself, because we're all friends. So we're always having conversations, about our family lives, about our businesses, and about the charity. And I think if you're not careful, you can burn yourself out in the charity world because you're giving, which you are. All of my board members, my patrons are giving unremunerated, their time, their resource, their effort. And I'm always mindful you can burn people out from that. And I would never want that of anybody. And equally, I always say to individuals that work with us on the Star Trust, family first, business, charity. So if you have any issues within family or business, it has to come before charity. It has to. As we were getting ever closer to the million, Matt, it's a good question because we thought, actually, do we shut the doors? A bit like the Princess Trust journey. Do we say we've done 1 million Brilliant, great. We've given £1 million away to 140 different charities in the region, affected 100,000 lives. Actually, we've done our bit. We could walk away now. We could hold our heads up high and say we've done our bit for charity. Let's all take a big sabbatical and call it a day. And those thoughts do go through mine and my fellow board members' minds. I know they do, because we chat about them. But then you think, who would fill that void? That's the moral dilemma you have. That all of a sudden, if you didn't do the fundraising, who would fill that void? And I think that there lies that moral question for me, that if we did suddenly pack up, where would these charities that we help and they need the support, where would that come from? Because they've always got the roots of, as you know, central and local government funding, but there's a lot of hoops to jump through, most of those from a tender process. And as you know, a lot of those are the first things that get called when we get into financial difficulty, whether it's at local government level or national government level. So that kind of keeps our drive going, really. So next million, I suppose, Matt, is the question. It's kind of, excellent. We like what we do. We had a charity a couple of weeks ago, Epic Partners. You would have seen probably the LinkedIn post. They had 32,000 of funding pulled by, again, local government, left them in a void, so they couldn't deliver their services. And they do some amazing work in Nottingham. They were the charity that Prince Harry visited this summer, because it's close to his heart as well. And Emma and I have been very fortunate to visit them. And we were like, wow. So we spoke to their chief exec and said, wow, this is he said, yeah. And, almost in tears, this guy, because, they wouldn't be able to deliver their services. So I said, where can we assist with this? What does this look like? I said, first of all, I think you need to look at your own business and say, can I make any savings or divert any of my internal funds for that 32,000 deficit? Which he did. So I think they managed to donate or attain about 14k of savings within the organisation. So that's a good exercise in itself, making them more efficient. So that left them with just over 20 to find. So we gave them half straight away. We ran it through our system, ran it through our board. We did a vote system. We did our due diligence visit, so that they can at least get those courses and support running. And then we've given them a big shout out on LinkedIn and with our network to try and get them the next 10,000 raised as well. But when you hear stories like that, for me, that's the real need in society. There's a definite need there that if we didn't fulfill it, then there would be people in society that wouldn't have the help and opportunity that they needed.
One of the charities that is very local to us, like in the village where we work, Me and D, you've given money to them. And again, they're one of the charities that falls in the gap because they don't check the boxes, and they give amazing experiences to children and families with life-limiting conditions. And some of the work they do for those families is forever legacy, and they don't check the government funding boxes. So it is people like the Star Trust giving those for projects makes all the difference.
Yeah. And I think from that as well, I like the fact that we can help. I think if you're a cancer charity, a children's charity, a pet charity, it always resonates with people, because cancer touches so many lives. If you've got children, you'll always feel you feel for a children's charity, and pets are the same. We're a nation of pet lovers. But what happens if you're a male suicide charity? What happens if you are a self-harming charity? You're a charity that's trying to get prostitutes off the street, young girls. What if you are a homeless charity? Because most of those, sadly, are labelled by, typically people that have been successful. Matt, why don't you, what are you living on the streets for? Just get yourself a job, man. Get yourself out of that. Why are you self-harming? Stop that. Why are you thinking about suicide? You should be stronger than that. And we all assume that it's so easy for people to get out of these environments that they're in. But that's because somebody who's been successful is normally very strong mentally, very strong minded, got a great support network around them. And these people, and you'll know them from your own male suicide scenario, just don't have those people around them, don't have that strength. That's where they need that assistance. And I think that's the misconception, of a lot of charity sectors. And I think the one thing we're blessed is that we can help all those sectors. We don't discriminate. We can help everyone. So even the ones that are struggling to put an event on because it's not a feel-good type outcome, we can help.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, we need people to go to the show notes and find all the links and details and everything there, so you can work out how they're going to support. But Matt has 3 very important questions that we definitely have to fit in.
Yeah, that we always finish the podcast with. The first one, Steve, is can you give me a book that has really sort of changed your trajectory through your years of entrepreneurship that you'd like to share with the audience?
Not that's changed my trajectory, but I think a book that I think is pertinent to where we are in society and technology at the moment is a book called Pray, which is a Michael Crichton book that he wrote many, many years ago, probably 20 odd years ago. And this book, and it will resonate with you now, it was about AI linking with nanotechnology. That AI could think but couldn't create, nanotechnology could create, so it linked. And then it was the end of the human civilization. Because why did you need humans? These 2 component parts of technology could link together. Here we are in a society that AI is absolutely revolutionizing everything at a fast pace, a faster pace than they can even keep. I was reading an article yesterday about AI is so fast paced at the moment, we can't keep hold of it in terms of the people that are delivering it. But all of a sudden you start to get that, thinking as it does, and then start to, so that book that was written 20 years ago, could be a reality in the future, which scares me in a way. I think you've got to embrace new technology, but you also think, where does mankind fit into this, in terms of, my young children and their children as well. So it's nothing that's kind of really directed me, Matt, but certainly something that I think, is very pertinent to what's happening today, and also always makes me think in my own mind about, we just need to be a little bit restrained about some of the things that we're doing to the planet, we're doing with technology, not for our generation, but I think for generations to come.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I'm definitely going to check that one out because, because I think we've got less than 10 years to answer some of these questions before we're in trouble. So
yes, I agree, definitely. And the kids, it's interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of the kids think about the planet scenario and how we're destroying our planet. I think a lot of kids embrace that, and my children embrace that, in terms of that. But actually, conversely, on the AA side, they love it because they love what it's doing. They love, ChatGPT and Gemini and everything else, and they love it. But they're not looking what the potential impacts could be. As you know, in commerce, what could it be in jobs, and where jobs look like in the next. So it's all right going to university because you want to be a solicitor or an accountant, but will there be solicitors and accountants? Because I can write most of what they do. So it's strange, isn't it, that I think people don't necessarily think it all through. And I'm not being a doubter of technology. I'm just saying we have to be careful.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, no, we really do.
What are you guiding your kids in that way? Are you, with regards to their careers, do they know what they want to do?
My 2 girls do, because they're 17 and 16. My son wants to be an astronaut, race car driver, awesome. You name it, he wants to be it. Yeah, as usual. I've always been, Jenny, I've always wanted them to do well at school, so I've always given them support. Never push, it's always support. And I've never guided them in terms of what they want to do as a career. From my point of view, they can do whatever they want to do, whatever they feel comfortable. So even when it comes to subjects at school, I've just said, do what subjects you do well in and you enjoy, because the one thing with education is you should enjoy it. You should enjoy that journey. They both want to go to university. And again, that wasn't forced. That was them wanting to do it. And as I said to them, I had some great years at college and university. I said, so you will enjoy it. But I'm not pushing or directional in that way. I think they've got to do what they want to do and what they enjoy. And as you know, life, It's like driving that coastal road of bends. You think you're going one direction, all of a sudden the bend takes you on a U-bend and you come somewhere else. So I think when you're 16, 17, trying to have an absolute focused direction of travel in life is difficult.
Oh, I keep telling my 19-year-old, all you're doing now is building skills, and you don't need to have it all worked out. You're just finding skills and working out which ones you enjoy and which ones you don't. It's a very different world to I think where we were brought up. I was brought up in a very traditional, linear kind of, you do that and you do that and you do that, and I did it and I hated it.
Yeah.
And
but it's
I'm like, well, what am I going to do in my life?
and you've done well, so it's great. The outcome's great. It's always the journey. But I remember, when you say going back to my childhood. So I had a number of, when I was kind of 15, still at school, 15, 16. One of my best friends was going into the Merchant Navy, and then when he was in the Merchant Navy, he was traveling the world at 17. He was all over the world, and I was like, wow, this is fabulous. I ought to go in the Navy, and my uncle was in the Royal Navy. So that was one direction of travel I was thinking of doing. Another one was dancing, and you'll see from the ball, I love to dance. So dancing was something I've always loved from an early age. So I thought, I'm going to be a dancer. And then the other one was, I'm going to be a lorry driver. I've been none of them, but it's interesting. That's why I say, from what you kind of want to do when you're a child to what you actually end up doing in life, is that mountainous road of curves and changes the direction.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing.
So that's your book.
Is there a piece of music that
inspires you?
Not a piece, but I love music, Matt, if I'm honest. Music's a motivator for me. So being in the car, if I, I'm a bit of a spiritual type person in some regards, and for signs. So if I'm in the car and, I put a bit of music, and I'm talking about the radio now, I'm not talking about my own playlist, put the radio on it and it's a tune that I really like, brilliant, my day's going to be great. Just, I'm set up for the day. Or if I'm in the gym training and a piece of music comes on, I'm set up. So music definitely motivates me in a lot of different areas, and I love music. And I think the nice thing about music is if I played you a song, you would remember where you were when that song was, in the charts or whatever. You'd remember who you went out with, where you went. Whereas if I gave you that year of that song, you wouldn't be able to remember any of that information. So music's a great trigger, real great trigger.
Yeah, absolutely. Love that. And a tool or framework?
Oh, what? Sorry?
A tool or framework that you use all the time.
Yeah, I mean, finance is always, the financial part of every business has always been the driver for me. It's always been that kind of hub, if I'm honest. So whatever a business I've been involved in, the first thing that I go to is its financials. And the first thing I go to is the depth of the financials that I can achieve from that business. And then that's when you understand how well that business is being run, by the depth and accuracy of the information you can get from the finance team. And if you can't get it, then you think, right, this is the first thing that I need to address, is being able to get that immediate access of financial information and understanding it. So financials has always been, whether it's been, truck bodybuilding business, a solicitor's business, car leasing, whatever, real estate, my first go-to will always be finance, and always be, what are the numbers? What do the numbers look like?
Is there a tool or framework that somebody can use to find those numbers?
I think you need to understand it, Jenny. As we said earlier, I think you need to, whether you find it for an educational route or you self-learn, and self-learn's very easy now with AI again, but understanding a P&L, understanding the component parts of it, understanding a balance sheet, understanding trendings, of where the trend of where your business goes. Because I think, that's what highlights all of your strengths and weaknesses in a business, because particularly when you can trend, and whether your business is seasonal, you can seasonal trend, or whether it's just calendar, you can calendar trend. But you can see, what was I spending last year on waste disposal? What am I spending this year? Well, why has that gone up? You start asking yourself questions, but then that starts making your business perform better. So, I think you've always got to have an understanding of that. And then when you do understand it, I think the person that's producing those numbers for you, understanding how they produce them. So, my FD, if she gives me a number, I'll say, right, show me where these numbers have come, how we've got these numbers. So I'm not just trusting the number. I trust her implicitly, but I'm not just trusting the number. I want to understand the makeup of the number.
Yeah, you want to know the story behind that number.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's great. I know I spent several years on the production team at Dragon's Den, and I know that one of the first things that happens off camera, when the camera finishes and they go into the actual negotiation and due diligence and things, the two things they're interested in are the numbers and the level of distribution that the business potentially has. And they're the two keys that they want to know.
And it's interesting, is that, when people come to me with a business idea, I'll say to them, where do you want this to go? And invariably, everybody wants to make money. Everybody wants to make a lot of money if they can. But I say you have to understand what are your opportunity and what are your constraints. And, a lot of people don't realize that they've picked a business that is constrained. You'll only ever grow it to a certain element, because of the marketplace or where you are, the geography or whatever, or the margin you can make. But then also you say, well, then beyond that, making money, what's the game plan? Oh, I want to sell. And that's a lot of business owners' game plan. I mean, I've been very fortunate to have sold a number of businesses. But, I said, but what happens if it doesn't sell? Oh, yeah, well, somebody will buy it. I said, will they? I said, some businesses are unsaleable. Some businesses are not attractive. So I think when it comes to starting a business, it's trying to understand what your short, medium and long-term goals are for that business. And, is it to make money? Can you? Is it going to be constrained? And then finally, is there somebody out there is it attractiveness? Is it in that part of the market where there's a lot of M&A activity and people want to buy it? So I think that's always a lesson to be learned when you're starting out.
Yeah, that's really good. And I love what you said about the journey and, the game plan. One of the first questions we always ask a business when we're starting to work with them in a consultancy partnership is, why does the business exist beyond money?
Yeah.
Because that's going to dictate a lot of the work we do together, because we need to understand that, and we need to understand what the goalposts and things are around when the money side gets tough, because it will get tough at points. So what else is going to drive us in those situations?
And that's an interesting one, Matt, because I think, even professional services, they need to do more on knowing your client. And knowing
100%.
your client beyond business and beyond numbers, knowing your client, because you need to get inside the psyche of somebody and understanding, as I say, what's, like you've just said, what is your driver behind this business? Why are you doing it? Take the financials away, but why are you doing it? Do you love it? You're just doing it as a necessity. You're doing it out of because your dad did it or your mum did it. Why are you doing it? And then, what are your plans? Do you want to hand it to your children? Do you want to sell it? Do you just want to keep it trading? Do you want to send it public? But I think it's understanding that, and then also what's people's attitude, because you do get lifestyle businesses, and I totally subscribe to them. You'll get somebody. We've got a cafe owner on one of our business parks. She loves it. She just comes in, she meets people, she bakes a cake, she does her bacon rolls. She doesn't make particularly much money out of it, but she loves the lifestyle, and fine, that's what motivates her. It's not making money, it's not selling, it's not making it public. It's just about a lifestyle. So understanding, I think your point there is very, very pertinent.
And sometimes you have to come back to it. I mean, we've spent a lot of time this week, because I just said to Matt, I've lost connection with who I feel the client is for me and how to message. So he's like, right, we blocked out the diary and we spent a few hours going back through it, because it's an evolving thing. It's not something that's always static. And sometimes when you're in the business all the time and you're doing all these things, you lose sight of it and you need to be dragged back. And we've done a lot of work on that this week, which has really recentered me and given me a new vigor to start again and get going. So it wasn't big changes, but there were tweaks that had to be made, because we looked at our client avatar and went, is that right? It's kind of right, but it wasn't actually totally right. So we've had to do a little bit of a sidestep.
And particularly at the moment, the rate of change in the market and the world is phenomenal. And so the clients are changing, and their core desires and aspirations and all those inherently human things aren't changing. But the way they show up, what they really want now, the problems they need solving, all those things are evolving quickly, and we've got to keep revisiting to stay ahead of that.
I think the frustrating thing as well, from yourselves being, in the kind of consultancy arena. And also it was the same, when I chaired businesses, I wasn't an equity owner in, so I've been paid for the role. The difficulty is that horse to water scenario.
Not kidding.
You can see, I've had businesses in two different sectors where I could have made them market leaders. One market leader in the UK, the other one market leader in the region. But, talking to the equity owners in the business, they just didn't see that vision. They didn't see that change and embrace that change. And that's what's frustrating. I'm sure you find the same, that you can say, we can make this so great. And this is what we need to do. And they don't want to do that. And that's fine. It's their business. But that's when I walk away, because I think there's no value here.
That's exactly what
us too. I'd say that was probably the biggest thing we've had to learn in the last 10 years is actually, we can't make you successful. Like, if you don't want it, like, that's fine. But we'll move on and help someone in the sector who does.
Yeah.
That values you. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And the final question is, do you have a phrase or a saying that you kind of live by or motivates you? You tell your kids?
And I'm going to tell you something that endorses this totally. It's live life for today. It's always been my mantra. And that's because I've seen so many people that I've lost at earlier stages of my life, and some of those ironically through male suicide. But if you looked at the Eric Dane story last week, the actor, the American actor, I don't know whether you've seen that on Netflix. I mean, that absolutely endorses that phrase of mine, because there he was, a 52-year-old actor, physically fit, good-looking guy, great career, two lovely teenage girls, contracts ALS. Within 2 months, he's lost his left-hand side ability to use. Further 2 months, he's in a wheelchair. 9 months later, he's dead. So, from contracting it, then you've got 2 months before you're debilitated. What can you do in 2 months? What can you do in 2 months to give somebody true memories of life? So make those memories all the way through your life, so I can do so much with my children, because if I died tomorrow, we've holidayed together. We've created some amazing memories together, like my late father had with me. And that resonates. That's more than money can give you. That's more than material things can give you. It resonates in here all the time. So for me, it's always live life for today. Don't ever push anything down the road. Do it now.
Yeah, I love that.
That's how we live our lives.
Good. That's our ethos too. So.
Yeah, good.
Although my phrase is definitely no failure, only feedback. And at the moment, the thing that gets me out of bed is I act in spite of my mood. Yes. That gets me to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Because remember, Jenny, it's never about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. When I'm thinking, I really don't want to go to the gym. Jenny, you act in spite of your mood. Get up.
Yeah. What you need is a fat picture of yourself.
Yeah.
You need a fat picture of yourself, and then go, that's exactly why I'm training, exactly why I'm eating what I eat, and exactly why I'm looking after my body, because I don't want to be that person.
Well, do you know what, Steve? We got married in November, and this week we were just like, we've done that married thing. We're both the fattest we've ever been.
Content, it's called contentness. Yeah, no, you're
Absolutely.
right.
So just trying to ramp it up.
So last week we were like, this is it. Stopping. We've had 4 months of that and no more. Back to the gym.
There's nothing wrong with contentment, but as you know, that you do then, you do just naturally, you eat more, you're a team, you just become more content with your surroundings. And I'm not saying you give up. I think, people say, oh, I've given up because I'm married. I don't need to dress away or be fit or whatever. But I think that comes from self-discipline and self-motivation, that, you've both realized that and said, I want to change. So that comes from, that drives come from you, not somebody else has said that. And I think that's always a great quality when you can drive yourself.
It's so essential. It's that horse to water thing. Like if you can't take yourself to water, who the hell else is going to do it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Or if somebody does lead you to it and you don't drink.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
I always say, if I can't challenge myself, how can I expect my clients to challenge themselves?
Absolutely, by example. Yeah, no, absolutely. No, I totally agree.
Yeah. Steve, it's been absolutely wonderful having you on the show.
Thank you for your time. Pleasure.
Amazing. Thank you very much.
No, it's been great. Thank you.
Da, da, da.